Hello, welcome to another edition of the VOD Weekly News Recap. I am Glorious Haddijatou Njie. Good evening. Now let's look at the headlines. Government to buy a ton of granules at 32,000 this year. Council Fati filed statement of defense in Jawara versus Sabali. Foundation for Free Health and Education handed over football materials to the Butterfly Friends Football Academy for girls. National Assembly debate on the 2023 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia. MOH inaugurates the National Public and Environmental Health Council. The Gambia observes World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. President Barrow urged to provide sea ambulance for immediate referrals of patients from North Bank region. Boko Haram fighters killed 10 Chadian soldiers near Nigerian border. African leaders agree on ceasefire in Restricted East DR Congo from Friday. Tanzania begins rationing electricity due to drought. South African prison service challenges court decision to send ex-president back to jail. Afghanistan, I drug my hungry children to help them sleep. Ukraine war. Mourning newborn babies killed in Russian missile strikes. Brazil court rejects Bolsonaro's party complaint over votes. China records new number of cases as virus spreads nationwide. Those were the headlines. Now let's look at the news in details. This year, President Adama Barrow has promised farmers at a meeting held on Monday at Nurukebe community that this year's season, his government will buy a ton of granules at 32,000, given a high shift from last year's price, which was sold 28,000 per ton. President Barrow was speaking at his 2022 meeting on the Meet with the People tour. With this year's theme, Together We Can Accelerate Social Economic Growth and Maintain Peace and Stability. This also regarded by communities of Lower Nyomi as a great opportunity for their concerns being looked after by directly having a dialogue with the president. He further promised that whoever sells his groundnut to the government, his name would be recorded and would be given first priority to get the fertilizer.
Waru leen a jaay seen gerte bi si biti jaay leen gerte bi nguur gi ren nag ñu ki soo amee jafe-jafe foog nga def ay pexe am na ay pexe yuñ def si engrais bi benn pexe bi mooy dañ waxtaan ak ñu nga xam ne ñooy liggéey ak ñoom World Bank waxtaan nañ ak ñoom pour ñu jàppale ñu si engrais bi fona bii moom news bu neex la pour alkaali dëkk bi
It is not fair for the government to give you the farmers fertilizers and at the end you sell your products to outsiders, which the government is willing to buy your granules at a better price, he emphasized. He further noted that the Gambia government spends $500 million on fertilizers, which cost the government $3,500 per bag of fertilizers and later sold per bag at $2,000 to farmers. Lawyer Abdullahi Fati, counsel representing the former Secretary General and Minister of Presidential Affairs and member of the opposition United Democratic Party, Mr. Mamadou Sabali, has filed a statement of defense in response to Abubakar Jawara's civil lawsuit against his client at the High Court of the Gambia. Mamadou Sabali, the defendant, was served with a wreath of summons to appear before the High Court in Banjul on November 14, 2022, to respond to a civil suit filed by Abubakar Jawara, the plaintiff. Abubakar Jawara, in his civil lawsuit, is claiming damages of defamation and slander, seeking an order directing the defendant, Mamadou Sabali, to issue an unreserved apology to the plaintiff. In his response to Abubakar Jawara's lawsuit against his client, counsel Abdullahi Fati made mention of plaintiff's personal proximity to and the friendship with the head of state, and that he is a strong and prominent financial supporter of the ruling National People's Party. In addition to the vast business interests he acquired in the Gambia since the change in regime in 2017, this has urged in his defense submission makes the plaintiff a politically exposed person in the prevailing social political landscape of the Gambia. Counsel Fati, in his statement of defense, pointed out that his client is a prominent opposition figure whose attempt to contest in the National Assembly member election ended with a rejection of his nomination by the IEC. He was and remains a high-profile social commentator, author of several books, the nicknamed Gambia's Pen, along the way. In that, the defense, Momadou Sabally, is a firm and profound critic of the current dispensation and adversarial roles that he embraced without malice. In his capacity as an opposition politician, the defendant was at all material times, Counsel Fati wrote in his statement of defense, in his defense submission, counsel for the defendant denied his clients made any false pronouncement with malice. Paragraph 3 is admitted only to the extent that the defense is a permanent opposition politician. Otherwise, it is denied that he made any statement that were false and intentional malicious. Furthermore, Counsel Fati urged that the plaintiff did not suffer any reputational damage from his client's utterance. Foundation for Free Health and Education on Saturday, 23rd November, handed over some football materials to the Butterfly Friends Football Academy for girls in New Jerusalem. During the handing over ceremony, head administrator of the foundation, Sam Bature, emphasized that the academy is planning to host a match on the 26th of this month, and this will bring together 4 different teams to compete against each other. Therefore, he further stated that some of the participants are at the age of 13 and 14 and above, and therefore training continues. National Assembly debates on the 2023 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia. Aissatou Sow reports.
According to Parliament's schedule for the 4th ordinary session, FPAC was due to table its report, the consideration of the 2023 estimate of revenue and expenditure on Wednesday, 23rd November 2022. However, this could not take place as planned. This was meant to be the first stage after the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Honorable C.D. Keite, tabled the 2023 draft budget on Monday, 14th November 2022. Giving reasons for the delay, the Speaker of the House, Honorable Haddijatou, revealed that up to Tuesday, some committees had to finalize their report for onward submission to FPAC, who would then compile the various reports to be tabled before them that morning.
Following our retreat, we are all aware that we had committees who had bilaterals with various line ministries and institutions. And up to yesterday, some committees had to finalize their reports yesterday for onward submission to FPAC.
Speaker Jatta explained that the time span is too short, that it is almost impossible for FPAC to finalize the report of the various committees for tabling before that August gathering that morning. The 1997 Constitution and the Public Finance Act provide parliamentarians with only 14 days to approve the budget after being tabled by the Finance Minister. This means parliamentarians have until 28 November 2022 to approve the 2023 draft budget. The report is being developed following budget bilateral with various committees of the Assembly, with ministers, departments and agents under their purview. Honorable Ministers of the National Assembly began their sanitary with a 3-day retreat on the budget and budget bilaterals with various ministers, departments and agents between Thursday 17th and Tuesday 22nd November 2022.
The Ministry of Health on Thursday inaugurates the National Public Environmental Council at the Health Ministers Conference Hall in Banjul. The National Public Health and Environmental Council were allocated a complex in Kotu at the MOH campus and an official vehicle. Musa Kamara Registry PEHC, urged the Ministry of Finance to ensure public health is empowered and be given that due financing so that there will be less investment in the procurement of medicine to treat patients at the hospital. Mohamed Lamin Jaite, Permanent Secretary, MOH, states that Public and Environmental Council is the newest of the existing health regulatory bodies in the Gambia, established in 2019.
In this country, organized public health services were actually born out of disease outbreaks. Way back in the 1800s, we had a cholera outbreak that was very devastating. We also had a yellow fever outbreak in 1933, which decimated a big chunk of Banjul, which brought about this name Half Die.
And that before that, in 2016, the PEHC Act was passed by the National Assembly and assented by the President. The Gambia observes World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. Aissatou Sow reports.
The Gambia on Thursday observes World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, meant to raise awareness on the global antimicrobial resistance, AMR, under the theme Preventing Antimicrobial Resistance Together. This awareness forum, organized by the Directorate Pharmaceutical Services and the Minister of Health, is funded by WHO. Dr. Usman Sise from the Veterinary Services of the Gambia states that the country is having 500,000 sheep, goats that are running around sharing the environment with people, and they also get treatments for getting sick, as there are ingredients that humans use as well as animals. The WHO representative, Dr. Kassa Mohammed, mentioned that the WHO has decided to put antimicrobial resistance in top 10 public health threats to humanity.
And then, trust me, Mr. Savali is a specialist in pharma, whatever. They will tell you very well that some of these ingredients that you use in human, you use them on these animals as well. And if we do that, well, the risk is just practically equal. They also could be part of the problem, or they could be the problem for where this whole thing started, actually, having what we call, what Mr. Savali has taken his very good time to explain to us clearly well here.
And that it's a big thing that can reverse all their gains in public health. Director of Health Services, Dr. Mustafa Bite, says that it's every Gambian's business to ensure that the drugs we use continue to be effective.
The National Assembly member for Lower Nyomi constituency, Honorable Tamsir Cham, has urged President Adama Barrow to consider providing a sea ambulance to pave easy referrals for patients with critical conditions from the health centers in the North Bank region to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. For the first time, such an initiative is being raised in all previous stores. It goes with the belief that the initiative called for would be of a great benefit in the health sector, particularly those in the North Bank region. Honorable Cham was speaking on Monday, the 2022 meeting with the People's Store held at Nungu Kebe community with this year's theme, Together We Can Accelerate Social Economic Growth and Maintain Peace and Stability. It's also regarded by communities of Lower Nyomi as a great opportunity for their concerns being looked after by directly having a dialogue with the President. Now let's look at the news across our borders. A dozen soldiers were killed Tuesday by jihadists who attacked an army post in western Chad, a presidential spokesman told AFP. The attack also caused injuries, said in a statement Barak Muhammad. It was perpetrated in the early morning near Ngabawa in the Lake Chad region on the borders of Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and Nigeria, where the jihadist groups Boko Haram and its descendants branch Islamic State in West Africa, ISWANs, regularly attack armies and civilians in the 4 countries. An army unit dispatched as a precursor to set up an outpost on the island of Boker Turam was attacked by elements of the Boko Haram, Mohammed said. The Chadian authority indiscriminately called Boko Haram the group of the same name or the ISWAM. The 10 dead and wounded are all elements of the defense force, the spokesman told AFP. Lake Chad is a vast expanse of water and swamps dotted with hundreds of islets, some of which serve as hideouts for Boko Haram and ISWAM's jihadists. Today, Boko Haram no longer has the strength to attack the barracks in the lake area and is now targeting the population and their properties, said Chadian President General Mohammed. 10 days ago, while traveling in the area, his transitional government has vowed to more than double the size of its army by the end of 2022 to deal with security challenges, including threats from Islamic militants linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. African leaders agree on ceasefire in restrict East DR Congo. Haddijatou Njie reports.
The Angolan Minister of Foreign Affairs on Wednesday announced an agreement was reached for an immediate ceasefire from Friday at 6 p.m. in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo at the end of a mini-summit in Luanda. Congolese President Flex met with Rwanda Foreign Minister Vincent in the absence of the President Paul to try to end the recent tension in Eastern Democratic of Congo after the failure of the ceasefire agreement reached in July. The parties also agreed to demand the immediate withdrawal of the M23 rebels from the occupied areas, said Minister Tete at the end of the meeting. The delegation were received by Congolese President and African Union appointed Haddijatou Njie.
Tanzania has begun rationing electricity due to a drop in hydroelectric output after a severe drought, the national power company said Wednesday, 24th November, with some areas facing 9 hours blackout. The East African country can produce nearly 1,695 megawatts of power from hydroelectricity and natural gas, amongst other sources, but it is currently facing a shortfall of 300 to 350 megawatts, said Maharaj Chad, managing director of TANESCO, the national power company. There are 2 main reasons for the drop in production: a prolonged drought and outcoming maintenance of certain sites, he told reporters in the economic capital, Dar es Salaam. The site of Kihasi, for example, in the region of Morogoro, southeast, has seen its production capacity fall from 180 megawatts to only 17 megawatts. Tanzania has been trying to increase its hydroelectricity production in recent years, thanks in particular to the construction of the controversy Julius in the Silos Reserve, which was supposed to produce around 2,000 megawatts. Like its neighbors, the country has experienced low rainfall and a delayed rainy season, forcing authorities to impose water rationing in Dar es Salaam last month. The situation is even more dramatic in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia, which are facing the worst drought in decades. The South African Prison Service, which has taken the decision to release Jacob Zuma on medical grounds, said Wednesday it was challenging the court's decision to send the former president back to prison. Having carefully considered the judgment, the Correctional Service are satisfied that another court may reach a different conclusion, the Department of Correctional Services said in the statement. declaring its intention to overturn the Supreme Court of Appeal's decision. Mr. Zuma, 80, finished serving 15 months prison sentence for contempt of court last month. He was convicted in June 2021 for stubbornly refusing to testify before a commission investigation corruption under his presidency 2009 to 2018. His imprisonment the following month triggered an unprecedented wave of violence and looting in a tense socio-economic context, leaving more than 350 people dead. Barely 2 months later, he was released for health reasons and placed under judicial supervision. The head of the prison service had granted parole against the advice of the prison medical committee. The Supreme Court of Appeal ruled on Monday that the early release was against the law and that Zuma should be returned to Escorts Correctional Center in KwaZulu-Natal Southeast. The court, Bloemfontein, is the second highest court after the Constitutional Court. The former head of state has denounced the cruelty of his return to prison. Now let's look at the international news in detail. Afghans are giving their hungry children medicines to sedate them. Others have sold their daughters and organs to survive. In the second winter since the Taliban took over and foreign funds were frozen, millions are a step away from farm. Our children keep crying and they don't sleep. We have no food, Abdul Wahab said. So we go to the pharmacy, get tablets and give them to our children so that they feel drowsy. He lives just outside Herat, the country's third largest city, in the settlement of thousands of little mud houses that has grown over decades, filled with people displaced, battled by war and natural disasters. Abdul is among a group of nearly a dozen men who gathered around us. We asked, how many were giving drugs to their children to sedate them? A lot of us, all of us, they replied. Hazran felt in the pocket of his tunic and pulled out a strip of tablets. They were alprazolam, tranquilizers usually prescribed to treat anxiety disorder. 5 alprazolam pills now cost the same as a piece of bread. Ghulam has 6 children, the youngest a year old. I even give it to him, he said. Others showed us strips of acetalol and striptolines tablets they said they were giving their children. They're usually prescribed to treat depression and anxiety. Doctors say that when given to young children who do not get adequate nutrition, drugs such as these can cause liver damage, along with a host of other problems like chronic fatigue, sleep, and behavioral disorder. A 2-day-old baby died in a Russian strike on a maternity hospital in Vilnius in southeast Ukraine on Wednesday, as Moscow wrapped up attack on civilians infrastructure nationwide. The newborn child mother and a doctor were pulled from a rubber of the destroyed facility in Zaporizhia, as nearby private houses were also damaged in the devastating S-300 missile assault. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky commended the shelling and accused the Kremlin of trying to achieve terror and murder, whilst First Lady Olena Zelensky called the attack insane. The enemy has once again decided to try to achieve with terror and murder what he was not able to achieve in the 9 months and could not be able to achieve, Zelensky said, referring to Russia. The godmother of the newborn baby has spoken of her death in a Russian missile attack on a Ukrainian maternity hospital. The governor of Zaporizhia region in Ukraine said the missile struck the town overnight. The baby's mother, who was the only woman in the facility at the time, and a doctor were rescued from the rubble. Brazil court rejects Bolsonaro party complaint over votes. Haddijatou Njie reports.
Brazil's electoral court has rejected a challenge against the presidential election results made by far-right party of President Njie. He narrowly lost to the leftist former leader, Luis, and his Liberal Party claimed without evidence that voting machines were compromised. The court said the complaint was made in bad faith and fined the party 22.9 meter reals. Lula takes office on 1st January. Superior Electoral Court President Alexandra said the PL complaint was offensive to democratic norms and had sought to encouraging criminal and anti-democratic movements. Lula's victory with 50.9% to Mr. Bolsonaro's 49.1% had been revised by the TSE. Mr. Bolsonaro has previously claimed that Brazil's electronic voting machine is still not conceded defeat but has given the go-ahead for the presidential transition. He stepped away from the public gas after losing the election on 30th October. Immediately after Lula's win was declared, many lorry drivers supporting Mr. Bolsonaro erected roadblocks and there was surveillance with police. Some of his followers have continued demonstrating outside military barracks using a military intervention to prevent Lula taking office. Lula, who previously served as president from 2003 to 2010, is now 77 and will become the oldest person to assume the post. His victory was a stunning comeback for the politicians who could not run in the last presidential election in 2018 because he was in jail and barred from public office. But his conviction of corruption was later annulled. Haddijatou reporting for VOD.
China has recorded its highest number of daily COVID cases since the pandemic began, despite stringent measures designed to eliminate the virus. Several major cities, including the capital Beijing and southern trade hubs, Guangzhou, experiencing outbreak. Wednesday saw 31,527 cases recorded compared with an April peak of 28,000. The numbers are still tiny for a country of 1.4 billion people, and officially just over 5,200 have died since the pandemic began. That equates to 3 COVID deaths in every million in China, compared with 3,000 per million in the US and 2,400 per million in the UK. Although direct comparison between countries are difficult, with China's zero COVID policy has clearly saved lives, it has also dealt a punishing blow to the economy and ordinary people's lives. The country slightly relaxed some of those restrictions a few weeks ago. It cut quarantine for close contacts from several days in a state facility to 5 days and 3 days at home, and stopped recording secondary contacts, which allowed many more people to avoid having the quarantine. That's all we have for you today. Until we come your way again, I am Haddijatou Njie on the VOD Weekly News Recap. Have a good evening and thanks for watching.